Anytime a heart turns from darkness to light, anytime temptation comes and someone stands to fight, anytime somebody lives to serve and not be served, I know, I know, I know, I know.
冰冰，你好。Hello， 你好。Hi everyone. Just wanted to give an update. Just got back from about an 8-week trip to China, which I spent most of my time in Beijing. And if you don't know about Beijing, it spans about 2.5–3 hours wide to drive the whole thing. So I spent most of those 8 weeks in Beijing. But then I also went up to a couple provinces north of Beijing. I also went for a day trip to Tianjin, which is on the east coast, right next to Beijing, and then all the way down to Hangzhou, which is just south of Shanghai. So pretty much all on the east coast of China. But it was an amazing time, and just gonna give a little bit of an update, show some pictures, and tell you guys everything I've been doing. So I was asked to help run adventure camps for kids, much like what I did at Rock and Water 15 years ago in California. But it ended up being a lot more than that. It was absolutely amazing. I helped train staff. We did family camps, we did adult camps, we even did some day camps, and I got to teach Chinese kids how to swim. It was awesome. So it was way more than I ever expected to do, and built some great relationships in those 8 weeks, and learned about soaring, learned about the Chinese culture, learned the geography in China, which I'm not bad at, but yeah, it was really a wonderful time, and God really blessed me over there. Some of the cool things that I experienced while I was over there: got to see the Forbidden City, Tiananmen Square, hiked the Great Wall of China, which is absolutely breathtaking. My favorite part of China was actually the relationships that I built. There were a few people there that I think I left a piece of my heart with them. One of the girls, her name is Julene. She's my Chinese sister. We're born in the same year, same month, just a few days apart, and she really stole a special place in my heart. God's blessed her so much over there, and her life story is phenomenal. So who knows, she wants to come to the States and study, so maybe one of our updates she'll be sitting next to me. But the relationships were amazing. Sharing God with people was amazing. It's a different culture. We know that going into it, but when you actually go there and you experience it, it's very different. It's a different world. I also really enjoyed the food. So many different cuisines, so many different tastes. They value keeping the ingredient true to the ingredient, so everything's really fresh and just absolutely delicious. So I had the opportunity to go to a Chinese church twice while I was over there. I went to what they call a home church, and a lot of home churches are only Chinese, but this home church was a very mixed church. So you had people from all over the world, but also many Chinese. But the unique thing about this church is that most of the people at the church spoke English, and their pastor is actually Korean, and he speaks very good, fluent English. So the sermon was in English, and then they translate it into Mandarin for the native Mandarin speakers in the church. And worship was amazing. It was really, really amazing. They didn't focus so much on the presentation or even super great quality of singing. It wasn't on the performance. It was on the actual experience and on the worship. and they sang simple American worship songs, but they had such a depth of meaning. And in a couple of the worship sessions, I actually ended up crying because it was just a really neat experience. Yeah, God is moving there a lot, and the church is being persecuted in China. It's not illegal to be Christian, but as far as the size of churches goes, if the church gets too big, they usually will send police in and shut it down or break up the church somehow. A couple of my friends told me different stories. I saw on video this happen where the police would come in and they would listen and record the service, and they'd talk to the pastor during the service and ask them, are you going to make us convert? And he'd say, no, everyone is welcome, and they'd stay. Most of the time that's as far as it would go, but one of my friends was telling me that about 12 years ago they came into her church, and they actually arrested the head pastor. They put him under house arrest, and he still today is in house arrest. He has kids that have gone to college overseas, but he has to be at home all the time, 24/7, and he even has a guard that sleeps in the hallway outside of his house to make sure that he's there at all times. They don't know when the house arrest will be lifted, but she said many people have become believers because of the witness that he's living every single day. So what makes Soaring so unique is that, number one, it's a Christian company in China, and instead of following a lot of the models of the US camps, they can't, because of number one, to buy land in China is almost impossible. The government owns everything, and even if you do buy land through relationships you have in the government, you only own it for a maximum of 70 years. So what the owner has done is, instead of owning land, they find spots where they can hold camps, and they are purposefully spreading them out throughout China to hold camps that are less than 300 kids. So the cool thing that this does is number one, it reaches a lot of kids through all over China. So not just kids in Beijing that can come out. And then it introduces them to different areas in China where they get to travel and see God's creation in different places, where some places they might have more water than others, some places might have bamboo. And then it also introduces them to Christ and to the story and to the message. And it's just reaching many kids. We've seen a lot of kids come to know Christ this summer. And even cooler than that, a lot of the volunteers came to know Christ this summer. When I asked most of the kids what their favorite part of camp was, there were two camps in particular. One, we let the kids play outside in the rain. We actually played Capture the Flag, and many of the kids came up to us without us even asking, and they said their favorite thing they had done their entire life was that day, playing in the rain, because in China, kids don't get to play in the rain. The parents and teachers believe that they'll get sick. And so we convinced the teachers that the kids would not get sick if they played outside in the rain with us. It was a warm day, it was perfectly safe, it was a lot of fun. We found worms, we caught frogs, and the next day the teachers were taking their temperatures and making sure that they were fine, and the day after that all the kids were healthy. So they said thank you, and they told us in the future they will let their kids play in the rain. The other thing that they said their favorite thing was, on one of the water hikes in Hangzhou, we found a rock that the kids could jump off into the water. Now, number one, that wouldn't normally happen in any summer camp because it's seen as too dangerous. Number two, most kids don't swim, and so they wouldn't do that anyway. But we had life jackets, and we had already tested it to make sure it was safe. And so we had kids in China jumping off this 15-foot rock into the water, and it just blew them away that they could actually experience something like that, and the adrenaline and the excitement of it, and then the backdrop of this waterfront and the rocks and everything. It was just gorgeous. So we had a lot of the counselors saying that that was their highlight, a lot of the kids saying that that was their highlight of the trip. It was really, really awesome. So one of the big learning curves for me while I was in China was time management. Life happens at a very different pace in China. They actually have some sayings about time, and time doesn't have a lot of meaning in China. If you go back to the roots of their language, there are no tenses, and so time flows, and they're not worried about being here or there at a certain time most of the time. And as frustrating as that can be when you're running a camp, it made life smooth at times for these kids and for the people. It was very relaxing, actually, and one of the cool things that they do because of that is every single day after lunch they take an hour of time for rest. And they sleep, they relax, they talk to each other, they socialize, but they take a break from everything and they just be. And it was really, really neat to kind of go into that culture and try to relax my time management, and just kind of relax and be calm during that time. So relationships and the slower pace of life, creation, and trying new things are all amazing avenues for presenting the gospel. And the camp was able to do that in so many beautiful ways. A lot of people asked me if it was difficult to be away for so long, and number one, yes, but number two, I was kept very busy during the first 6 weeks. The last 2 weeks were tough. I was ready to come home, and the last week felt like it dragged on, but I arrived safe and sound. My 12-hour flight didn't seem super long. I watched lots of movies, and when I stepped off the plane, seeing everybody there, I lost it and I started crying, which I think confused Ash and Zoe, because they just didn't understand why I was crying when I saw them. But it was amazing. It's been really nice being home, and I've showered everybody in hugs and kisses, but it's great being home. I love you guys.